It was a chilly evening, and the streets were filled with the sounds of cars and distant chatter. People walked by quickly, wrapped in their coats, carrying bags of groceries, or heading to meet friends. In the middle of it all, she moved slowly, her stomach growling with hunger. The day had been long, filled with small, odd jobs that barely paid enough for a few hours of work. Each step she took seemed heavier than the last, and the thought of a warm meal felt almost like a dream. She glanced at the small cafe ahead, its windows glowing softly against the dim streetlight. Inside, people laughed and talked, the smell of fresh bread and coffee drifting out to the street. Her heart tightened. She hadn't eaten properly in over a day, and every part of her body felt tired and empty. But she hesitated to ask for anything. Pride and fear held her back. What if they said no? What if they laughed at her? She kept walking for a few steps, trying to push the thought away, but the hunger was stronger than her doubts. She stopped just outside the door, looking in at the people enjoying their meals. Her eyes caught sight of a grand piano sitting in a corner of the cafe. Its polished wood reflected the warm lights, and it called to her in a way nothing else did. Her fingers itched, remembering the hours she had spent playing whenever she could, even when no one was listening. Music had always been her escape, her comfort, and her secret talent. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the cafe door. The bell chimed softly, and all eyes turned toward her for a brief moment. She gave a small, nervous smile and walked toward the counter. The owner, a kind-looking man with gray hair and glasses, looked down at her with curiosity. "Can I help you?" he asked politely. She swallowed hard, her throat dry. I was wondering, could I play a song on your piano in exchange for a meal?" Her voice was soft, almost hesitant, but there was a hopefulness in her eyes that could not be ignored. The man blinked, clearly surprised. He looked at her for a moment, trying to figure out if she was joking. Most people would never think of such a thing. But there was something sincere about her, something that made him pause. He nodded slowly. "All right, you can try. Just one song, okay?" Her heart leaped. She nodded quickly, thanking him quietly before moving toward the piano. Her hands trembled slightly as she sat on the bench, the weight of her hunger and exhaustion still pressing on her. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and let her fingers hover above the keys. The first notes were soft, hesitant, as if she were testing the air. But soon, the melody began to flow more confidently. It was as if the piano had been waiting for her, responding to the emotions she poured into every touch. The few customers in the cafe stopped their conversations, turning their heads to listen. The soft hum of voices faded, replaced by the delicate, moving sound of her music. She played not for attention or praise, but because it was the only thing that made her feel whole at that moment. Each note carried her feelings, her hunger, her struggles, her hopes. The melody was simple, yet it held a depth that touched everyone who listened. Some customers whispered to each other, astonished by the talent they had stumbled upon. Others sat completely still, captivated by the beauty of the sound. She did not notice the time passing, lost entirely in her music. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It was a friend, a voice, a way to express what words could not. Her stomach might have been empty, but her heart felt full, filled with the joy of creating something that could touch others. When she finally finished, she looked up and saw the cafe was completely quiet for a moment. Then, slowly, a few people started clapping. The sound grew, turning into cheers and applause. She smiled a little shyly, but it was the kind of smile that came from pure relief and happiness. The owner walked over, his eyes wide with surprise and admiration. "That was incredible," he said, still smiling. "You can have a meal on the house." She blinked, overwhelmed. She had come in hoping for a simple meal, something to fill her empty stomach, and instead, she had shared her gift and touched the hearts of everyone in the room. The plate of food in front of her felt like more than just nourishment. It was a recognition of her talent and courage, a reminder that even in moments of struggle, something beautiful could happen. As she ate, she looked around the cafe, seeing smiles on the faces of people who had just witnessed her music. She felt a warmth that went beyond the food, a connection to the world around her that she had rarely experienced. In that small cafe on a cold evening, she realized that her music had power to move, to inspire, and to change even the smallest moments into something unforgettable. After finishing her first piece, she felt a small surge of confidence, though her hands still trembled slightly from nervousness. The cafe had quieted down, but the energy in the room had changed. People were now watching her, some with curiosity, others with anticipation. The owner had returned to his duties, but his eyes kept darting toward her, clearly impressed by the unexpected talent that had appeared in his cafe. She took a deep breath, deciding to play another song. She didn't know if it would be good enough, but the melody that had been floating in her mind all day demanded to be shared. As her fingers touched the keys, the notes began soft, tentative, almost shy. But soon they grew, flowing with emotion, capturing the feelings she had carried quietly for so long. Each note told a story of struggle, of hunger, of hope, and of a deep love for music that nothing could diminish. The customers, who had initially been there just to eat, were now completely absorbed. Their conversations had stopped entirely, and some even leaned forward in their seats, listening with rapt attention. The sound of the piano filled every corner of the room, wrapping around the walls and settling in every heart present. It was more than music, it was a language that spoke directly to anyone willing to listen. She remembered the hours she had spent practicing in secret, the times she had been too shy to share her music, the nights she had gone hungry but still found joy in the piano's embrace. All of that had led to this moment. She realized that playing wasn't just for her own comfort anymore. It was a gift she could give to others, something that could make even strangers pause and feel something deep inside. The owner, now standing at the edge of the cafe, shook his head slightly, almost in disbelief. He had never expected a simple request for a meal to result in a performance that could hold the attention of every customer. Some of the patrons began whispering among themselves, sharing quiet amazement at what they were witnessing. One older man leaned over to his friend and said, "She has something special. I've never heard anything like this in a place like this." Her confidence continued to grow with each note. She was no longer playing just to earn a meal. She was playing because it felt right, because the music demanded to be expressed. Her fingers moved smoothly over the keys, creating melodies that felt alive, each one resonating with emotion and life experience. Some of the customers closed their eyes, letting the sound wash over them, while others sat frozen, holding their breaths as if afraid to break the magic. As she reached the climax of her second piece, a hush fell over the room. Every sound except the piano seemed to vanish. The music carried a sense of longing, but also hope and triumph, as if it were telling a story of someone who had faced hardship but refused to give up. When the last note faded, the silence lingered for a moment longer, heavy with awe and respect. Then slowly, the applause began. At first, it was soft, hesitant, but it grew quickly into a loud, full expression of appreciation. People were clapping, cheering, and smiling. Some stood up, unable to contain their excitement. The owner walked over, a plate of food in hand, and set it in front of her. "I think you've earned a little more than a meal," he said, his voice warm with admiration. She smiled, feeling her heart swell. She had come in hoping for something small, just enough to quiet her hunger, and now she had given something far greater, music that had touched the hearts of everyone in the room. The experience was overwhelming, but it was also deeply fulfilling. She realized that sometimes courage and a willingness to share your talents could lead to moments that were beyond imagination. Customers began to approach her, complimenting her performance. Some asked if she had played professionally before. Others simply thanked her for sharing something so beautiful. She answered with gentle smiles and quiet nods, still processing the fact that what she had done was being appreciated so openly. It was a strange, wonderful feeling, like seeing the world through new eyes for the first time. The cafe owner, now more relaxed, joined in the conversation with the patrons, clearly proud to have witnessed the performance firsthand. He told them that he had never seen someone so naturally gifted and that he hoped she would return to play again. She nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and happiness that was difficult to put into words. As she ate the meal he had provided, she reflected on the day so far. The struggles, the hunger, the uncertainty, and now this, a warm meal, admiration, and recognition for something she had always held close to her heart. The piano had been her companion through lonely times, and now it had become a bridge between her and the world around her. She felt a new sense of possibility, a spark that maybe this was just the beginning of something bigger. By the time she finished eating, the cafe had returned to its usual rhythm, but the memory of her music lingered in the air and in the hearts of those who had listened. People whispered to each other, sharing how unexpected and moving the performance had been. The owner wiped down tables, occasionally glancing toward the piano, clearly still thinking about what had just happened. She stayed for a while longer, savoring the moment and enjoying the simple pleasure of being part of something special. Even though she had come in hungry and tired, she left feeling nourished in a way that food alone could never provide. Music had the power to change a moment, to connect people, and to remind them that beauty could be found even in ordinary places. As she stepped back out into the evening, the cold air felt different. It was still chilly, but her heart was warm. She walked down the street with a lighter step, carrying not just the memory of the meal, but the joy of sharing something meaningful with others. That night, she realized that life could surprise you in the most unexpected ways, and that sometimes the smallest acts of courage could lead to the most unforgettable moments. As the days passed, the memory of that night in the cafe stayed with her. She found herself thinking about the warm smiles of the customers, the sound of their applause, and the feeling of the piano beneath her fingers. It had been a small moment in her life, yet it had left a big impression on her heart. Every time she remembered it, she felt a mix of excitement and hope, as if that evening had opened a door she didn't know existed. She returned to the cafe the next day, not because she needed another meal, but because the experience had inspired her. The owner greeted her with a warm smile, remembering her from the night before. "Good to see you again," he said. "Would you like to play for the customers tonight?" Her heart skipped a beat. She nodded, feeling a mixture of nerves and anticipation. She had never performed in front of an audience outside her small practice space, and the idea of sharing her music again filled her with both excitement and a little fear. She took a deep breath and walked toward the piano, her hands brushing over the polished keys. The first note rang out softly, and she felt that familiar connection, the music flowing through her like a river, carrying all her emotions with it. The customers began to gather, some curious to hear the young woman who had amazed them the night before, others simply drawn by the soft, beautiful sound coming from the piano. As she played, she felt herself becoming more confident, letting the music take over. Each note was full of expression, telling stories of struggles, dreams, and small joys. She played as if her life depended on it, pouring all her feelings into the melody. People stopped what they were doing, their conversations fading into silence. The cafe was filled only with the music, wrapping around everyone in the room. She noticed some customers closing their eyes, others leaning forward, completely absorbed. She realized that her music had a power she hadn't fully understood before. It could reach people in a way that words never could. As she continued to play, the cafe owner watched with admiration. He had never seen someone with such natural talent, and he felt proud that he had given her the chance to share it. The audience began to respond in small ways, soft claps, murmurs of appreciation, smiles, and nods. Each reaction encouraged her, fueling her confidence and pushing her to play with even more feeling. She decided to try a piece that was a little more complex, something she had practiced in secret for many months. Her fingers danced across the keys, moving with precision and emotion. The melody grew stronger and more intricate, capturing the attention of everyone in the cafe. Even those who had been busy with their own conversations stopped to listen, mesmerized by the beauty of her playing. Her heart raced as she reached the final notes of the piece. The room fell silent for a moment, as if holding its breath, and then erupted into applause. The sound was louder than the night before, and she felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had not only played music but had created a connection with every person in the room. After the performance, the owner brought her a plate of food, smiling proudly. "You've inspired everyone here tonight," he said. "Thank you for sharing your gift." She smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond the meal. It wasn't just about being fed. It was about being recognized and appreciated for her talent and courage. Customers came forward, expressing their admiration. Some asked if she performed professionally. Others simply thanked her for the beauty she had brought into their evening. She responded with humility, feeling grateful and overwhelmed. Each compliment reminded her that her music mattered, that it could touch hearts and bring joy to people she had never met before. That night, as she left the cafe, she felt a new sense of purpose. The world seemed a little brighter, filled with possibilities she had never considered. She realized that even small acts of courage, like asking to play in exchange for a meal, could lead to unexpected opportunities and moments of connection. In the following days, she continued to visit the cafe, sometimes playing a few songs, sometimes just sitting and enjoying the atmosphere. Each time she played, the audience grew more attentive, and more people began to take notice. Her confidence grew with each performance, and she felt a sense of pride and fulfillment that she had never experienced before. She began to understand that her music could be more than just a personal escape. It could be a gift to the world. She started to dream about sharing her talent with more people, performing in different places, and inspiring others with the power of music. The cafe had become her stage, her sanctuary, and a place where she discovered that her voice, through the piano, could reach beyond herself. One evening, as she played, she noticed a small group of people who had never been to the cafe before. They were drawn in by the music, standing quietly near the door, listening with rapt attention. She realized that her music could create new connections, bringing people together who might otherwise never meet. It was a feeling of joy and purpose that filled her heart completely. She played late into the evening, losing track of time, completely immersed in the music. When she finally finished, the room erupted in applause once again. People came forward to shake her hand, compliment her, and thank her for the gift she had shared. The owner, now beaming with pride, told her that she had changed the atmosphere of the cafe, bringing warmth and happiness to everyone present. As she walked home that night, her heart was full. She had come a long way from the hungry, unsure girl who had nervously asked for a meal. She had discovered that her courage, talent, and willingness to share could create moments of magic in the lives of others. She felt a sense of hope and possibility, knowing that her journey was only beginning. She realized that life could surprise you in the most unexpected ways. A simple act of bravery, like asking to play for a meal, had turned into an opportunity to touch hearts and inspire people. The memory of the applause, the smiles, and the warmth of the cafe stayed with her, reminding her that even in moments of struggle, beauty and connection could be found if you were brave enough to share your gift. That evening, the cafe was busier than usual. People had come in after work, families had gathered for dinner, and a few tourists had wandered in, drawn by the warm lights and the smell of freshly baked bread. She arrived early, carrying only a small bag with a notebook and sheet music, feeling the familiar mix of nervousness and excitement. She knew that tonight would be different. She could feel it in the air, in the way the customers were talking quietly and glancing toward the piano. As she approached the instrument, the cafe owner gave her a nod of encouragement. "They're all waiting for you," he said with a smile. Her hands trembled slightly as she settled onto the piano bench, but she took a deep breath and let it pass. She placed her fingers lightly on the keys, letting the music flow naturally, just as she had done many times before. The first notes were soft, delicate, like a whisper that invited everyone to listen closely. Slowly, the melody began to grow, carrying emotion with every touch. Her fingers moved with grace and confidence, telling a story of hope, struggle, and joy without saying a single word. People in the cafe stopped their conversations, leaning in to catch every sound. The room was filled with a sense of quiet anticipation, as if the music had cast a spell on everyone present. As she played, she noticed the expressions on the faces of the listeners. Some were smiling, their eyes bright with wonder. Others were silent, their attention fully absorbed by the music. A few had tears glistening in their eyes, moved by the depth and beauty of the melody. She felt a warmth in her chest, knowing that her music could touch people in such a powerful way. The cafe owner watched from a distance, clearly amazed. He had never seen anyone command the attention of his customers so completely. He glanced at a few of the regulars, who were nodding their heads in approval and exchanging excited whispers. The energy in the cafe had changed. It was no longer just a place to eat, but a space where something extraordinary was happening. She shifted into a more complex piece, one that she had practiced in secret for many months. The melody danced between highs and lows, flowing effortlessly from her fingertips. Her emotions guided her, creating music that was alive and moving. The audience was captivated, their attention held tightly by every note. Some closed their eyes, letting the sound wash over them, while others watched her fingers move with admiration and awe. As the piece reached its climax, the intensity of the music filled the cafe completely. The customers were leaning forward, holding their breath as they were swept away by the performance. The atmosphere was electric, charged with a sense of wonder and excitement. The music seemed to connect everyone in the room, creating a shared experience that was unforgettable. When she finally finished, the room was silent for a brief moment. Then slowly the applause began. It started softly, with a few people clapping, but quickly grew louder, filling the entire cafe. Some customers were standing, cheering and clapping enthusiastically. The owner approached her with a plate of food, smiling proudly. "You've outdone yourself tonight," he said. "Everyone here is talking about your performance." She smiled, feeling a wave of happiness and gratitude. The meal was not just food. It was a symbol of recognition and appreciation for her talent and courage. She had come in hoping to satisfy her hunger, but she had gained something far more meaningful: the admiration and respect of the people around her. Customers came forward to compliment her, sharing how moved they had been by the performance. Some asked if she played professionally. Others simply thanked her for bringing beauty into their evening. She responded with gentle smiles and quiet words, feeling humbled by the positive reactions. Each compliment reminded her that her music had the power to touch hearts and inspire people she had never met before. The owner, clearly impressed, encouraged her to continue playing in the evenings. He explained that her music had transformed the atmosphere of the cafe, making it a place where people could not only enjoy food but also experience something magical. She felt a sense of pride and fulfillment that she had never known before. Her courage and willingness to share her talent had created a ripple effect, impacting everyone who had been present. As the night wore on, she continued to play, exploring different melodies and emotions. The customers remained engaged, their attention unwavering. Some returned to their meals, but their eyes kept glancing toward the piano, drawn by the music. She felt a connection with them, a sense of shared experience that went beyond words. Music had the power to unite people, to create moments of joy, and to make even ordinary nights unforgettable. By the time the cafe began to empty, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The applause, the smiles, and the compliments had filled her with warmth and gratitude. She realized that her talent was not just a personal gift, but a tool to bring happiness and inspiration to others. The experience had strengthened her confidence and given her a new sense of purpose. As she packed her things and prepared to leave, the owner approached her once more. "Thank you for sharing your music," he said. "You've made tonight special for everyone here. We hope to see you again soon." She nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. She had discovered that a simple act of courage, like playing her music for others, could lead to moments of connection and joy that were far greater than she had ever imagined. Walking home that night, she felt a renewed sense of hope. The cold air did not bother her. She felt warm from the inside, carrying with her the memory of the evening. She thought about the people she had touched with her music, the smiles she had seen, and the applause that had echoed in the cafe. It was a reminder that even in the most ordinary places, something extraordinary could happen if one was brave enough to share their gift. The following evening, the cafe had an unusual energy. Word had spread about the young woman who had amazed everyone with her piano performance, and people had come from near and far to hear her play. Families, friends, and even a few strangers who had heard about her talent gathered, filling the seats and standing near the piano. The air was thick with anticipation, a mix of curiosity and excitement. She could feel the collective attention of everyone waiting for her, and her heart raced with a mix of nerves and excitement. She approached the piano, her hands brushing over the smooth keys, feeling a sense of familiarity and comfort. The owner gave her a reassuring nod. "Everyone's waiting for you," he said softly. She smiled, taking a deep breath and letting the moment settle in her mind. She closed her eyes for a moment, centering herself, and then began to play. The first notes were gentle, almost fragile, like a whisper calling the listeners to pay attention. Slowly, the melody grew, rich and full, carrying a depth of feeling that could only come from experience and emotion. Her fingers moved with precision and grace, flowing over the keys effortlessly. The room fell silent as the audience became completely absorbed in the music. Each note told a story of struggle, of hope, and of quiet triumph, and the listeners felt as though they were part of the journey. As she played, she noticed the expressions on the faces around her. Some people had tears in their eyes, moved by the beauty of the music. Others smiled, their eyes shining with wonder and delight. A few were leaning forward, completely captivated by her performance. The atmosphere in the cafe was electric, charged with emotion and connection. She realized that her music had the power to unite everyone in the room, creating a shared experience that was both intimate and powerful. She shifted into a more dramatic piece, one that required intense focus and emotional depth. Her fingers danced across the keys, creating complex melodies that soared and dipped with the emotions she poured into them. The audience was silent, their attention fully captured by her performance. She could feel their anticipation and their awe, and it inspired her to play with even more passion and expression. As the piece built toward its climax, the room seemed to hold its breath. Every note resonated with power, carrying the emotions of the performer and touching the hearts of the listeners. She played with abandon, letting the music flow freely, expressing everything she had felt in recent days, the struggles, the hunger, the hope, and the joy of sharing her gift with the world. The audience was completely enthralled, experiencing the music as if it were their own story being told. When she reached the final notes, she held them gently, letting them linger in the air. The room was silent for a moment, as if everyone was holding their breath, savoring the final echo of her performance. Then, slowly the applause began. It started softly, but quickly grew louder, filling every corner of the cafe. People stood up, cheering and clapping, their faces lit with admiration and amazement. Some shouted words of encouragement, expressing their gratitude for the beauty she had shared. The cafe owner approached her with a plate of food, his eyes wide with pride and astonishment. "I don't think I've ever seen anything like that," he said. "You've touched everyone here tonight. You deserve more than just a meal." She smiled, feeling overwhelmed with gratitude and happiness. The applause and admiration were more than she had ever hoped for, and she realized that her courage to play had led to a moment that would stay with her forever. People came forward, eager to compliment her and thank her for the experience. Some asked if she performed professionally. Others simply wanted to share how deeply moved they had been. She responded with humility, her heart full, feeling a connection with each person she spoke to. Every smile, every word of praise reinforced the power of her music and the importance of sharing her talent with the world. As the night continued, she played more pieces, each one unique and filled with emotion. The audience remained captivated, their attention unwavering. Some were returning customers who had come specifically to hear her again, while others were experiencing her music for the first time. She felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that her music could inspire, comfort, and unite people in ways that words alone could never achieve. By the end of the evening, the cafe was filled with warmth, laughter, and gratitude. The audience lingered, not wanting to leave, and the owner expressed his admiration once again. "You've changed the atmosphere here in ways I never imagined," he said. "Thank you for sharing your gift." As she left the cafe that night, her heart was full. The standing ovation, the smiles, and the words of appreciation had left an indelible mark on her soul. She realized that her journey had taken a remarkable turn, all because she had been brave enough to share her music. What had started as a simple request for a meal had become an experience that touched many hearts and transformed her own. Walking through the quiet streets, she reflected on the night's events. The applause and admiration reminded her that courage, talent, and a willingness to share could create unforgettable moments. She felt a sense of hope and possibility, knowing that her gift had the power to make a difference in the lives of others. The memory of the standing ovation stayed with her, a reminder that even in moments of uncertainty, something extraordinary could happen if one was brave enough to take a chance. In the days that followed, the young woman noticed a change in her life. People in the neighborhood spoke of her music, some recalling the evenings they had heard her play in the cafe. The memory of her performances and the standing ovation she had received stayed fresh in her mind, filling her with a sense of pride and joy she had never known before. She walked the streets with her head held a little higher, carrying not only the memory of her talent, but also the realization that her courage had opened doors she had never imagined. She continued to visit the cafe, sometimes to play a few songs and sometimes just to sit and enjoy the warmth and energy of the place. Each visit brought new faces, people drawn by stories of her music or simply curious to see for themselves. The cafe owner welcomed her warmly every time, offering her a seat near the piano and ensuring she had everything she needed. The connection she had built with the cafe and its customers gave her a sense of belonging that had been missing in her life for so long. One evening, a small group of local musicians visited the cafe after hearing about her talent. They watched quietly as she played, clearly impressed by her skill and the emotion she poured into every note. After her performance, they approached her, offering kind words and encouragement. They suggested that she consider performing in other venues or even recording her music, assuring her that the world deserved to hear her talent. She listened carefully, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. The idea of sharing her music with a wider audience was both thrilling and daunting, but she knew that this was the next step in her journey. Word of her performances began to spread beyond the cafe and the local neighborhood. A few social media posts and mentions in local community forums brought more people to hear her play. Soon, she was no longer just a young woman who played in a small cafe. She became a symbol of courage, talent, and the unexpected ways life could reward those willing to take a chance. Her story inspired others to pursue their passions, no matter how small the first step might seem. Despite the growing attention, she remained humble and grounded. Each time she sat at the piano, she remembered the simple reason she had started playing in the cafe in the first place, a desire to share her music and connect with others. She never played for fame or recognition. She played because it brought her joy and, as she had learned, could also bring joy to others. The authenticity of her music resonated with people, making every performance meaningful and special. The cafe continued to be her sanctuary, a place where she could refine her talent, experiment with new melodies, and interact with an audience that truly appreciated her music. She found that the more she played, the more confident she became, not only in her musical abilities, but also in herself. She realized that her courage to ask for a meal and perform had sparked a chain of events that transformed her life, showing her the power of taking a chance. One afternoon, a journalist from a local newspaper visited the cafe after hearing about her story. They wanted to feature her in an article, highlighting her journey from performing for a simple meal to becoming a celebrated local musician. She agreed, feeling both nervous and excited about sharing her story with a wider audience. The interview allowed her to reflect on her journey, recounting the struggles, the courage, and the unexpected moments of beauty that had shaped her experience. The article was published, and soon more people came to hear her play, eager to witness the talent and heart that had captivated so many. As her reputation grew, she was invited to perform at small community events, charity gatherings, and even local music festivals. Each new opportunity brought excitement and challenge, but she approached every performance with the same sincerity and dedication that had defined her first night in the cafe. The joy she felt in connecting with audiences and sharing her music remained as strong as ever, reminding her that the true reward of her talent was the impact it had on others. Through all of this, she never forgot the moment when she had first asked to play for a meal. That simple act of bravery had changed the course of her life, showing her that sometimes the smallest steps could lead to the most extraordinary experiences. She realized that her music was not only a gift for herself, but also a gift for the world, capable of inspiring hope, joy, and connection in ways she had never imagined. The young woman's story became a source of inspiration in her community. People admired her courage, her humility, and the beauty of her music. She received messages from strangers who had heard about her story, thanking her for inspiring them to pursue their own dreams. The ripple effect of her first performance for a meal had grown far beyond her imagination, touching lives in ways that were both tangible and heartwarming. Even as her life began to change, she remained true to herself. She continued to visit the cafe, play her music, and connect with the people who had first believed in her talent. She understood that her journey was about more than recognition or success. It was about the joy of sharing her gift, the courage to take risks, and the power of music to unite and inspire. Each note she played carried her story, her experiences, and her heart, creating moments that were unforgettable for both her and those who listened. In the quiet moments, she reflected on how far she had come. From the young woman who had nervously asked to play in exchange for a meal to the musician who had inspired countless people, her journey had been remarkable. She realized that life's challenges and hardships could lead to unexpected opportunities if met with courage, determination, and a willingness to share one's gifts. The standing ovation, the smiles, and the connections she had made were proof that even the smallest acts of bravery could create lasting change. As the years passed, she continued to play, her music growing richer and more expressive with each performance. She never lost sight of the humility and gratitude that had defined her earliest experiences. Her journey served as a reminder that talent, courage, and authenticity could touch lives, inspire hearts, and transform ordinary moments into something extraordinary. The young woman who had once played for a simple meal had become a symbol of hope, proving that with bravery, kindness, and dedication, anyone could create moments of magic in the world around them.